Welcome to ENside Politics, our weekly podcast on 7 or 8 things you need to know about San Antonio politics. I'm Greg Jefferson, politics editor of the San Antonio Express-News, and I'm joined today by City Hall reporter Molly Smith.
Hello.
Welcome. And our special guest, District 6 Councilmember Ric Galvan. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Of course.
So I want to start off with this big climactic vote City Council had on Thursday to move city elections from May of even-numbered years, which is just a terrible time to have elections, I think, in terms of turnout, to November, also of odd-number years. What are you expecting in terms of turnout for that move? Is it going to be, because this was sold by supporters, some of them anyway, as being kind of this is something that could kind of reignite voter interest in city elections. Is it that?
That's a great question. I think, on the dais, both this past week and the week before, I talked a lot about my concerns about the turnout. My past experience before I was on council and before I was even a council aide was doing voter registration and voter advocacy and all the kind of stuff that folks are talking about with the Texas Freedom Network. It was focused primarily on youth outreach at college campuses as well as throughout the larger community. And so it's something that's very familiar to me at the heart of what I do or what I have done. And so when I saw some of this coming together and I heard different proposals or different points from different people about, well, this will be the next big thing for us to really galvanize turnout, I think, well, it is still odd year. Like, let's not. I have definitely done voter education and pledge to vote cards and voter registration during odd years, and it is minimal turnout, even at UT Austin, where the highest turnout amongst young people is, right, in our state. So it's dicey. However, I think this, right, I did a survey with my residents, and they overwhelmingly said, let's do it. Let's go for it. We have to try something to just move a little bit closer to it. The conversation around voter education groups, including TFN, other groups, MOVE, et cetera, will still be engaged, and we'll likely have some more focused engagement on it because it is city council elections, not a constitutional amendment election, which never is exciting. Right. Maybe for me, but otherwise.
For most people, no.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see maybe a marginal improvement. But I think regardless from there, the last points I made on the dais last week was just saying, this isn't the end all be all, and it shouldn't be.
So this was a 6-5 vote. So this barely passed. And there were, different points in this 6-hour-long meeting where it seemed to be a toss-up. And it could have gone either way. So you had 3 hours of public comment in which you had several speakers singling you out, talking about where's District 6? Because I think you had expressed some reservations about it. I mean, kind of, is it really the be all and end all of voter turnout? Right. And probably not, I think is what you were saying. There was no data to support that. And then you move from the public comment to city council. The debate starts. You were one of the early council members. And at the end of your comments, I thought you were a no.
I thought you were a no.
I think a lot of people felt the same way.
I was.
So I was keeping...
You were no at that point in the meeting.
So you were? Okay. And near the end, or actually at the very end, when the vote was cast, it's like, there he is. I mean, he's a yes vote. What happened in that intervening 2 hour and a half, 2 hours?
Yeah, a lot of folks that I trust were on both sides of this conversation, right? There was folks who were telling me, absolutely push for it, absolutely go for it. There's no reason not to. And now I had to talk to them about, well, I have some reservations on it. Everything I said publicly, that's the same reasons why. Like, I try not to be kind of coy with what I'm talking about here in case y'all haven't been able to tell. I try to say what's on my mind. And so I did, especially something that's so important to me. On the inverse, there was a lot of people who I also trusted who were saying, no, it's not worth doing it right now, whether it's because of timing, because of the amount of public outreach, and even the lack of public vote, which is also very important to me. And of course, the educational aspect, right? The ISDs, as you all know, are very important to me too. And so every week that was passing since Thanksgiving, I was getting all kinds of calls, I was having all kinds of conversations. I went to the Northside ISD school board. I was trying to just wrap my head around either getting to what felt the best for me to do. So responses were coming in. Residents were still overwhelmingly saying, go for it. From the first maybe 40 people that filled it out, it was 91%.
Yeah.
In favor of it.
In favor of moving to odd year. We even put questions about, well, what if it was even year? What if it was this? And it was like, odd year, prefer, we'll get to even year later. Yeah. So that kind of stayed with me the entire time. And so that morning, I had the honored to be able to have breakfast with Dolores Huerta, with Mayor Jones, as well as some other leaders, and Councilmember Munguia. And that was helpful in me thinking, but I remember leaving that and still, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm really curious about that breakfast. At any point, did the mayor turn to you and say, Councilman Galvan, how's it going to go?
No, thankfully.
No, really?
I had a feeling it could go that way, or there'd be subtleties towards it.
Because then you're paying your own check.
Well, right. Well, Mayor,
and probably getting a ride back on your own, having to,
I got my own walk across the street. No, I mean, I had a feeling it may have gone to that where we get more, all right, who's going to do what.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was very much on the history of civil rights and voting rights in our country. It was very much the history of even the recent organizing in California, whether it's on redistricting or before then about consolidating all their elections, although it was the even years. And so it was interesting to kind of go through that and think about what it means for this particular vote, right? And so I sat with that for a while. By while, I mean 30 minutes, because then we went back into we went into a session. And I just listened to public comment. I saw, again, the same folks who I've known for a long time. And I thought about just, is it the right thing to do to give us a shot at getting us closer to voter turnout that's a bit higher, to get more people the opportunity to vote in our city elections that are already abysmally low in terms of turnout. And if our folks are asking for it, why not give it a shot? Sometimes
so it's like, I mean, it sounds almost as though your position was it couldn't hurt. Like you're not going to do any damage.
That was the thing.
Is that what it boils down to, or is there?
I believe so. I think there is that. It's not going to do any damage in terms of turnout. Hopefully not. I don't think it will. There's a chance it could increase, and then we just keep working on it from there if we're going to even year. I think it'd be a lot of a harder sell to try to talk about let's move to even year while also let me not move at all. And so I was kind of weighing that a little bit. But I still, when I talk to folks interpersonally, I'd end up in the same places with them because I was just like, no, I agree with you. But I unfortunately agree with both of you. And it's a hard part, right, when you deal with that. But my main focus from now with this election, or with this vote, moving elections, is two things. One, work with the ISDs to make sure that we can have them on the same page with us, or at least find ways to prevent the cost from being too high for them because we already know they're strapped for cash. And then, of course, also making sure that we're pushing towards even years to get the highest turnout as possible with a public conversation around it. That'll be more difficult, but we'll still... I'm committed to doing that work.
Going into last week's council meeting, I think most people thought the mayor doesn't have the votes. The only people we knew who were with her were Jalen McKee Rodriguez, Edward Munguia, and Phyllis Villagran. So she had 3 votes. And then a lot of folks seemed like a no. And then we're kind of in the meeting. I thought you were going to be a no. And then Misty Spears, I think, surprises a lot of folks. And she says, I also did a survey. My residents overwhelmingly support it. So it was clear the mayor had 4 votes. The mayor was there. That's 5. She needed 1 more. How swayed by that were you? I guess kind of my question is, had it been clear that the mayor was not going to get the vote, she was just going to keep those 3 she had, would you have been a no, or would you still have been a yes, even if it was like a yes and this was going to fail?
That's a great question. I do remember when Missy said that, I turned my phones away from me and I sat straight in my seat and just kind of focused in on what I was going to hear for the next couple of rounds of conversation. I felt it was important for me to think about this in terms of, is this the best thing for me to do for my community, for my constituents, and for the city overall?
So you pushed the phone away because you thought you were going to be inundated with text messages from supporters and opponents.
Yeah.
Because at that point, it was clear you were this.
Yes, you were the swing.
So you were in the hot seat, basically.
Yeah. And so,
all eyes were on you.
Right. And so, we had a lot of conversations with people that I really trust again, and it just came down to what do I think is the best choice for our community. And I think I talked to folks in my neighborhood associations when it first was rolled out. Went to Thunderbird Hills for their Christmas celebration, and went to Great Northwest for their events. And there was never a single person in my community, at least that spoke up at those meetings, right, who were saying, I don't know about this. It was always, why not give it a shot? Yeah. And so I thought about them, and I thought about, what would I say to folks who filled out my survey, 81% supportive, right? Who say, yeah, you reached out to all of us through email, through text, through phone, through social media, through in person, and you didn't go with it. Why? And so I thought about that, and I said, you know what? Let's move forward with it. And if it doesn't work out, we'll figure those kinks out as we go. But sometimes that's what we have to do here, especially in the local politics world, right? Where we're trying to figure out how do we get some of these things moving. That's where it came down to.
Do you
there's more pressure for me.
But we'll see the ISDs move? Because I know that was a concern of a lot of council members is the ISDs want to stay in May. But for the ISDs, it's much simpler to move. It's just a
Sure.
school board vote. There's no deadlines. Do you think there will be a push of, all of these elected bodies saying, you know what, let's consolidate and let's do November odd years and see what happens? And then you also, I guess, take the partisanship out of it as opposed to doing the even years where
Sure.
you're doing, president, Senate, whatever else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think for ISDs, it's just going to go down to costs, right? When I talk to different superintendents, different school board members at both the North Side as well as other school districts who are in odd years right now, it just talks about, it's not guaranteed it's going to be a cost saver for us. We need to do our own evaluations. Our staff has been more limited in what we're doing as well at the moment, so we needed some more time to work on this. But I think the conversation will continue, and I think that's going to be their main focus.
So just to be clear, I mean, it's if school districts have their board races in May at the same time as the city and maybe a bond election or whatever, and suddenly it's just the school districts and the city's moved on to November, it becomes a lot more expensive than for school districts to run elections. And that is, as I took it, was the biggest concern.
Yeah.
Or was there something else?
No, exactly that.
Okay.
I think it's exactly that. I think it's also trying to figure out, because here's the thing, right? For school districts, you can limit the amount of polling locations you want to have open, right? If it's Northside ISD, they can do it within Northside ISD boundaries, pay for those and say, that's what we're going to call it. Someone works who lives in Northside, like many of my residents do, but work downtown or work in the East Side or work in the South Side, and they don't get home until 7 p.m. Polls are closed. If only there was a polling site nearby, right? That's some of the conversation there. And so the school districts are really looking to expand turnout as well, or make sure that people have the opportunity to vote. As we know, polling access is important to turnout. That's part of the conversation. That's part of the cost, right? Do they reduce a little bit of the turnout potentially, as well as the access to voting, so that they can save costs and be able to pay for teachers and mental health resources at their schools, or the opposite, right? And so I think it's going to have to be something they're going to have to weigh, and I hope to be a good partner there. I've been trying my best to be, at least with our committee, as well as my own personal actions with the school district. So that's going to be the conversation that I'm willing to have, and we'll see what we can do. Of course, we also have limited funds, but if there's something that we can figure out, I think it's important for us to do.
So this didn't come up until 2 days before Thanksgiving. And the deadline to get this done was December 31st. The reason is this is made possible by a change in state law. It was approved, signed into law over the summer, and it allows cities to make this move. Basically, if you have elections in May of a number of years, you can move them to November. The mayor was very late in coming to this because she said she just wasn't aware of it. Who's to blame there? Like, is this? I mean, really, is this something that that city staff should have informed city council? Did city staff drop the ball, or is it reasonable to say, okay, city council, you're keeping up with the news, right, and what's happening in Austin and the state legislature? So maybe you should have known about it.
Sure. I think blame's a little bit all around. And maybe that's a cop-out answer to say, but here's why, right? I think, first of all, we didn't set our legislative priorities prior to us being in office, right? And so the council before us sets those priorities. And if this one's not a big one, right, and why would it be given the fact that it was Dallas pushing it?
Right.
Why would our city say, oh, well, this is a big focus for you all, we didn't hear it, right? So that's one, right? I think also, once it did come around, a lot of these bills were filed, not only this one, but in the past 30 years, they're filed for specific cities, whether it's Austin or Dallas or a different city. That's how legislature often works, where it's a bill that maybe doesn't get as much traction, doesn't get as much media attention because it's specifically for a group that's pushing for it locally in some form. And so I think that's also part of it, right? Where maybe there was some calculation of, well, we didn't push for this. No one seems to be really advocating for it at the moment.
Yeah.
It's not a big deal potentially.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when I think the media does come out later, right? It's a little bit different when you say, well, okay, this maybe could be a good thing for us.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Did I see it? No, I didn't. I'll be honest about that. I'm focused on other things at the moment. I'm focused on, if we're going to do voting rights stuff, I focus on even years. And so I say odd years. All right, well, moving along.
You were also running for election.
Also running for election, also my first few months here, also making sure that I'm working on this other CRs, all these things. So
and we totally knew about it. We were just saying,
Everyone knew.
we're city. Why is nobody at City Hall talking?
Absolutely.
No, I mean, I think this passed under a lot of people's radar, including our own. So
Yeah. And so I respect the mayor for keeping track of it and seeing what could be the potential for it here in our community. And I had a good conversation with her when she was first floating it.
Right.
I believe that Monday or Tuesday. I think it was a Tuesday. We were she had our regular one-on-ones, and so she floated it to me while I was wearing a hoodie, nonetheless. And
She look at you weird?
no, it's a Daft Punk hoodie, and so we both enjoy their songs.
How important do you think this kind of win was for the mayor? This was kind of the first time an initiative that she really wanted. She got enough people on board. I'm curious kind of what you think that does for her going forward, given that she has a track record of some of these, what we would call kind of high-profile losses.
Sure. I think ultimately it's a question for her, but also I think, I think it was important to her. Very clearly, right? There's a lot of folks that she really trusts, that a lot of us knew on council, who were supportive of this. So I think there was some momentum there, clearly, right? Yeah. When we heard from residents, including my own, right, they said, this is fine. Why not give it a shot? And so I think it was important to her to see, well, if our residents are for it, it seems to be a good thing. It may hopefully improve some of our conditions here in terms of voting. Let's give it a shot. I think that's where she was coming from with it. In terms of momentum, I mean, I think it's helpful to see maybe how she operates in terms of whether it's memos or in terms of getting folks to support, what kind of things we'll talk about there. And even just the conversation that we have on council is, a lot of, I feel, deliberations about just a particular topic, right? I'm sure she wanted it to go a bit sooner than the last council session, but I think it was worthwhile to have the B session, have that conversation. I think that was a really good kind of move there. In terms of the future, I mean, I would hope that we can continue working on some of these big things too that we're talking about, whether it's childcare, whether it's ready to work. Some things that are in our wheelhouse, but I don't think it's wrong to also think about things that are maybe a bit outside of our initial scope that are still going to be impactful to our community.
Yeah, right. It seems like it could be difficult to say, this is to look at how the mayor handled this vote. Say maybe this is a template for going forward. I mean, you're basically going to voters and saying, hey, should we maybe do something to improve voter turnout? Like, who's going to say no to that? I mean, what's surprising to me is, in some ways, is that it was a 6-5 vote.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. And that came down to the short calendar, concerns about getting enough feedback from constituents. But I don't know that.
And the data.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know that you could learn that much from, about how to handle issues at city council.
Yeah. Well, I think, right, this particular issue, maybe even some of the other ones, well, no, I think this one in particular kind of, I don't want to say came out of thin air because it came out of real actions that were taking place, but I don't think it was, of course, on any of our radars. And so it wasn't something that we were maybe tuned into versus other issues that maybe we already have our blades a bit sharpened about, right? To get into or to talk about or have different visions on or a similar vision to go forward on. So,
right. So enough with elections. I think we've covered that ground thoroughly. Now let's look forward, shall we? You filed, this was your first big council consideration request, which is how city councils city council members make policy. And yours related to the construction and operation of data centers, which are these facilities that eat up electricity and water to a lesser extent. The technology is improved and they're using less water, but they do use a ton of electricity, and data centers are kind of integral to the emerging artificial intelligence economy, like huge. And there's been a boom of data centers in San Antonio. We're up past 50 now, correct?
Yes.
Right? And in describe District 6. What are the bounds?
Yeah, District 6 goes from Old Highway 90 and West Commerce in the Edgewood area. And it splits off from there all the way out to Marbuck Road near John Jay High School, and then goes north towards Callahan and Holmes High School, my alma mater, out 151 and not necessarily Bandera because it's a little bit of Leon Valley, but if you kind of follow that general framework, you'll get to Great Northwest, Timber Ridge, Piper's Meadow, my neighborhood where I grew up, some of the Hunt Lane kind of area, Westover Hills, and then finally you get to Alamo Ranch, a little bits of slivers that we have there that are within city limits proper, and Government Canyon.
Which is beautiful.
I got a great turnout in the election twice there.
At Government Canyon? Are there a lot of people living in Government Canyon?
There's a handful of supporters.
I mean, okay. You also have Westover Hills, which is basically, it's kind of a gigantic, it's Marty Winder's big business park. And it's kind of disconnected. I mean, am I wrong? It doesn't seem near like it's kind of on its own. It's not surrounded by neighborhoods or anything. But you have a big collection of data centers operating in Westover Hills, which I think you mentioned in your CCR memo.
How many data centers are there in District 6?
I believe there's 12 to 14.
Okay.
Now, what made this an issue that you wanted to pursue first off? Because this is unless I'm mistaken, I think this is your first big individual policy initiative.
It is, yeah.
Why?
Well, I do think it's fun to have a big policy that immediately gets me all kinds of crazy looks from different directions, good and bad. No, it was
sure
fun.
There were several lobbyists in town freaking out when they were
sure. And you know what? Like, here's the whole thing with it, right? When I talk about some of these things, I can understand that maybe people will feel a little bit riled up of what does he really mean by this? What does this really look like? But at any time a city council consideration request goes through, it's a start of a conversation, right? And so for me, it was really that. What I heard from my residents in Westover Hills, from Westover Valley, Stonegate Hill, a lot of these neighborhoods nearby was, hey, we're all seeing the news. We're all seeing different things going on with data centers across the country, across the state, and even locally here. So we want to kind of figure out, how do we fit into this? We know data centers are here nearby us. We know Valero's not too far, Marquette's not too far. All those other places are nearby us. So what does it mean for our community to have these places or these entities here? What does it mean for our electricity use, for our water use, for our tax incentives, if any are going that direction, for our economic development? What does it mean? Because I'm concerned that it could be the worst, right?
Right.
And so as a council member, it's my responsibility, I believe, to figure out, if I'm hearing from our residents this question, what can we do here? What do we know about it? And what are things that we can learn more about too, as not only a city council, to be aware of our economic development drivers, as well as our infrastructure planning, but also for our community to understand a bit more too. And so from that, my office and we worked really hard to try to figure out what are the best ways that we can go about this without being too prescriptive. We have some, of course, different things in there about zoning and design that I think are relevant to talk about. But we also have mentioned a lot about getting folks to the table who are the industry, who are from research entities, right? Whether it's Southwest Research or UTSA, to kind of figure out what things are going on here. And of course, utilities in our city and even state entities too, that are also working the same issue.
Right. Now, there's a lot of talk in the AI industry now about whether we're in a bubble.
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that maybe we're at the high point of data center construction, and it's not going to be as hot and heavy going forward or the next couple of years as it's been. Because in San Antonio, I mean, I think the number of data centers quadrupled between 2023 and 2024.
Right.
So that's clearly a boom, and it looks an awful lot like a bubble.
Sure.
Do you think maybe you're too late with the CC? I mean, I know you just got elected, so
man, when I was 18, I could have done it.
I know there's nothing you could have done as a private citizen, but I mean, is there a chance that it's just what you're after is less relevant now than it would have been 2 years ago?
I understand what you're saying for sure, in terms of like, even with housing construction, right? When you try to give incentives or maybe even regulations on kind of new housing development and it starts to slow down, it's like, okay, well, what do we do all this for? But I do think with this, right, it's an ongoing concern, whether it's because new ones are being constructed or because all the ones that have been planned already are now here, right? But they're going to be now a larger load of energy that's going to be needed for them perpetually, right? Unless there's different technological advances there, but I think there will still be a lot of power generation needed. Water, of course, has been shifted a little bit in terms of their use, but understanding that too is important. And even expansions, right? It's not just new ones being constructed, it's also expansions by other ones that are already here to see how they can continue building this out, because the demand's there, right? Or at least for the most part. There is a concern to your point about the bubble and whether or not companies are really investing in them. And some other cities have been looking at reviewing that too, of okay, we're going to construct this new one, but are we going to actually get a company from this, or is it going to be an empty warehouse? And if so, what did we create all this infrastructure for? What did we build out all this new energy infrastructure for? What did we do all this planning for, only to see an industry not fully succeed here? And I think that's the key point here, right? Do we put our eggs in this one basket or not? And I don't think we are putting all of our eggs in this basket. We're putting a considerable amount, right? And we're also the component there that our residents are concerned about, and so am I, is who are we asking to pay for it? Right? Is it going to be more on our residential ratepayers or other commercial ratepayers who are already paying a high amount to them, right? And to all of us, right? Whether it's about our own affordability here in our city. If that's the case, then what did we do it for if there's not the demand there anymore?
Now, in In your memo, you direct staff to kind of look at what city council can do right now, right? I mean, through land use rules, that kind of thing. Do you have have you heard back from staff? Like, what can the city do? Do you know?
So I mean, it's just getting started, right? We went through governance. It's going to go to PCDC, Planning Community Development Committee, soon for a review. After DSD, the Development Services Department reviews a bit more of it, as was requested. Some of the different pieces that we have there are definitely within the UDC, right? Our Unified Development Code, which comes around every couple of years. We do a review of it and try to update it to make sure that we're adjusting as a city. Some can be made beforehand. I always like to say, we'll just have them ready. We'll go 2027 when it needs to be ready.
Right.
One of those pieces can be parking designs, parking mandates, right, for these particular entities. We know there's not a lot of workers who are there every single day. So why then do we need 30 to 40 plus, right, parking spaces there that could then demolish a bunch of trees or other kinds of natural landscapes that they're being placed in? Which is a big concern for our residents.
Right.
Same thing with some other neighborhood concerns, noise and lighting that can be a big concern. How do we adjust some of those so that way the building itself is not creating those problems? Even sometimes environmental design, right? To where this building is going to just be sitting here, not going to be doing a whole lot. Right. How do we make sure that it's still even naturally cooling, or maybe it has some green infrastructure around it? Those are some of the things I think can be done there. Because with zoning, I think it's a lot of other conversations around how do we make it so where if it needs to be a different category in its own, we can talk about that and see what would the benefits and costs be for the developer of the entity, as well as for our own city staff time and even for the general public, right? I think that's worth talking about. And those are the ones that have been kind of bubbling up to the surface.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's been a lot of the utility and infrastructure planning in the back end, which is less from DSD, but still kind of would be helpful to know, I think, whether how much we need to invest in it here, which I think the state's trying to figure out too a little bit.
Yeah.
With those kind of code changes, can they be retroactively applied to the existing data centers, or would it only apply towards kind of new kind of construction?
That's been a conversation I've had with some of the folks in the industry, is whether or not they would. I think they could be legally. We can do that. I think it's going to be a bit more imperative to understand where the industry's at now, right? And what would those expenses be, right? If we were to change it and say, okay, now you no longer need this parking lots or whatever, how expensive would that be for some of these entities to then embark upon if they want to take them away? Because they do have to pay for that still, maintaining the infrastructure, right? Maintaining the parking lot itself. And so if you can get rid of it, great. No worry there. If it's too expensive, then is it worth requiring it to y'all if you're not going to use it anyway? It's just the kind of cost benefit here and there. And I think that's the conversation I want to have, is how prescriptive do we need to be to address some of these issues? How cost prohibitive would it be for you all? And how can we maybe meet somewhere in the middle or see what's the best way to go forward from there? I think that's the biggest thing.
So part of your memo directed staff, is I think you alluded to, hey, let's look into the possibility of doing a special use authorization in the the city's Unified Development Code, which sounds just dry as dust and couldn't be more boring.
And yet here we are.
And yet here we are. That's right in our zone. So, no, but
yes,
I mean, a special use authorization, or that authority, that's a pretty powerful thing. And you probably, I'm just going to guess, you have at least one lobbyist who represents. This would be Bill Kaufman. He represents a lot of data center operators. You might have heard from him or others concerned about this CCR. What are their concerns, and how have those conversations gone?
You know, the funny thing with it is no one's brought up that specific point yet. Neither have I. I think, we can broach that as we get closer to it. Yeah. I think what folks were asking me was, what is your intent with this, truthfully? Yeah. Because, of course, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of immediate hair raising of, it's going to be a ban on all data centers forever and whatever. And I think, that's what you believe. That's up to you to believe. But if you want to talk to me, you can also talk to me. And so I've had a really good conversation with everybody about what the big concerns have been from my residents, right? What is this being used for? Is it AI, or is it just bank transactions? If it's just bank transactions, then we got to have it somewhere, right? If not, it's just understanding the ecosystem a bit more. How much energy does this use? How much of these centers that we have now, whether they're the big Microsoft ones or even smaller ones, Cyrex and QTS, how many of them are updated to using recycling water or even just air, right, for the cooling, versus the kind of view that we've had for a long time? And even some of the research still shows, right, about what the current technology is. So I think it's a lot of just understanding and approaching that. And I think it's up to the city to do that kind of work, whether it's a big concern on other issues that relate to public needs, public safety, environmental concerns, public health. All those things come to city council to kind of review. So why not review this one a little bit, especially when we're focusing in on it as one of our key economic development drivers. If it's going to be our economic development driver, let's make sure that we're able to communicate about it well, that our public understands what it is and where we can move forward from it. And if there are concerns there, how do we address them?
Yeah. So CPS Energy, which the city owns, they've projected demand for power is likely to increase by more than a third by the end of the decade. Data centers being a big component of that. Have you talked to the utility?
I have, yes. We've had some good conversations around it. And I think there will be some upcoming council meetings to talk more about it.
Are they concerned about what you're after, or are they just kind of gathering?
A little, I don't know if I would say concerned. I think it's very much the same thing. Are you trying to make sure that it's prohibited completely, or are you trying to find ways to work around it, or are you just trying to understand a bit more? Right. And I think I'm at the first two, actually, or the latter two, which is let's understand where we're at here, what's coming to also to our community, and what can we do about it, right? Do we need to increase our rates for it? If so, how are we going to do that? Right. Do we need to build out more infrastructure that way that maybe also includes rates, or is it not with that? So how do we do that? Is it going to affect our debt ratio as well? And I think we have the opportunity here in our city, given the fact that both of our utilities are owned by the city, right? Yeah. To better understand that and get that information that I think other communities don't have the option to.
Yeah. I mean, and CPS is in kind of a difficult situation with data centers because on the one hand, like they're driving up demand.
Yeah.
Crazily. I mean, just a lot. On the other hand, CPS is making a ton of money.
Absolutely.
A lot of
Which then we make a lot of money.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, when you... And I don't know if you followed the city's kind of cheerleading of data centers. It goes back 10, 15 years. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, good news.
Right.
Microsoft is here, and it's and then there's such enthusiasm, right? You think, oh my God, there must be a bazillion jobs attached to this. No, it's a relative handful of jobs, but really what you're talking about are tax revenue. From that standpoint, are any of your colleagues saying, "What are you doing? This is a cash cow"?
I don't think so, actually, which has been interesting. I think there's been some concerns about how much do we lean into the special land use authorization, how much do we lean into development codes, how retroactive would they be, all those things like that. I think it's about approach, right, and method. But overall, whenever I talk to somebody about it, no matter what political leanings they are or what kind of views they have, they said, I'm hearing it too in my community. Residents are asking about it. We see it in the news all the time. We all are concerned about it.
Yeah. So when you talk to constituents about it, like I wouldn't be surprised if, I think we're all a little freaked out by AI right now. Right. Like I assume AI is coming for me personally.
It will.
Like it's going to be next year. It's not going to be me sitting here. It's going to be some laptop.
Right.
Basically.
No, that's fun.
Yeah. So, is that when you talk with constituents about that, is what's overhanging any kind of talk about data centers, or do they even make that connection between AI, this kind of looming AI, what you might see as a threat, and data centers, or do they just not? They don't really think about it in that way.
Maybe not in the way that you described in terms of the kind of robot takeover. Yeah. And I do mean that respectfully though, because there are folks who do, right, feel that way of like, well, everything's gonna, and it makes sense, right? Whether it's about jobs as well, about automation. Yeah. For my residents, I haven't heard a lot of that. What I heard primarily is the water use, the energy use, and I think that's actually the biggest one so far. Everything else has kind of been tangential about even the neighborhood concerns. Lighting, sometimes that's required there because it's supposed to be kind of like an office park or it's zoned that way. Just shines at everyone's backyards when they don't need the lighting, unless it's just closer to the building. So there's little things like that also come up that are important. Which is about noise too, right? Co-location, they always try to locate together because the infrastructure is built there. Makes sense. What that often means though, if there's, I don't want to say too many, but there's a lot of them, it will lead to some noise concerns. Perpetual hum, which could affect your circadian rhythm, which could affect your sleeping patterns. And so there's been some research there as well about that. And I think there's been a lot of concern on those factors. AI, I think, is the kind of driver, right? Where it's like, well, it's this thing also that's pushing it, which is whatever. Some people are very pro AI, some people are not. Some people are ambivalent to AI and say, it's happening anyway. My concern is how does it impact our bills, our way of life, and everything of the sort. Yeah. Or quality of life, not way of life.
You talked about kind of the reaction that some folks had when you filed this was like, what are you really trying to achieve? Yeah. I'm curious how much of that maybe skepticism or concern to when you're pushing a policy proposal. I mean, one thing you're you're kind of trying to do right now is get free bus fare. But how much of that do you think is a reflection of the fact that, you're kind of a proud democratic socialist? You identify as this label. And I think for kind of maybe some more like traditional folks, they're kind of scared by that.
I love having in my Instagram and Twitter bio, imagine just having a beef with 25-year-old. Because it's not, sometimes you gotta just recognize what you're talking to here. Yes, I am young. Yes, I have maybe some different ideals than other folks, but I also am from here and I'm not immune to what we've been talking about here. I've worked in city council before. I'm not coming here guns blazing, although maybe this one felt like it was. But it really is to start these conversations about it, right? When we talk about fair free transit, the same conversation there is, okay, well, how much is this really paying for our bus system right now? Yeah. And while VIA, I understandably will say, right, it's a key part to us because we are limited in our funds.
Let's a little background.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're working on another CCR, which hasn't actually been filed yet. That didn't stop me from writing about it.
I know.
a couple of weeks ago. Terry Castillo, Jalen McKee Rodriguez, and you're pursuing some kind of free bus fare for, and it's not altogether clear for which populations.
For all, to be clear.
So that for you, it's all.
There's pilot programs listed. Well, go ahead. I'll let you.
So buses would essentially get on and it would be free.
I'm trying to figure out what it is you're after.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell me what you were thinking.
So in the CCR, that is still technically in draft form because we didn't get a fourth signature on it, or the fifth signature finally. What it talks about is, first and foremost, right, by 2035, how do we get to fair free transit here in San Antonio? How that anyone, no matter their age, no matter their ability, no matter where they come from, no matter any of those things, they can get on the bus and move around freely, and hopefully a bit faster too, because there's less kind of fighting on the bus when you don't have enough coins that you need. You don't have exactly $1.35. I mean, a quarter and a dime and a nickel's a little funky, but it is what it is. But anywho, so that's one of the key points there. That's the main driver that we're trying to get to. Part of that CCR also requested, though, doing a pilot program of some kind, focusing on certain populations to just kind of test out, see what it looks like, how much would it really cost VIA to get there, and what would it look like? Are we going to see an increase in demand in service? If not, then maybe it's not the best thing to do. Are we going to see better worker and bus rider relationships there? If so, I think it's a good thing. We have a high turnover rate in VIA right now, and one of the main concerns has been the working conditions, right? When folks who don't have the pay or who don't have the fare to get on, the bus operators have to usually say, all right, I'm sorry, you can't get on, and it becomes a big friction for a senior who's trying to get to their one medical appointment, for sometimes even an individual who's experiencing homelessness to try to get to the next place they need to go to, whether it's Haven or the next shelter, or to get healthcare themselves. It's tough, right? And so that's the whole thing that I think we're trying to get to here. And how we get there is just, well, we'd have to figure it out, but if the CCR is not there.
Right.
So you have the three of you, have you gotten a fourth person? So you need two folks to sign on.
Yes.
And have you found a fourth yet?
We have found a fourth. I don't know if I am allowed to say what.
Okay.
Given the fact that it's not released fully. So I'm going to leave it there, just out of respect for them.
So looking for one more person.
Looking for one more, anyone who's interested.
Is that
it's a 10-year plan?
Do you
like 9-year next year.
Are there any, are you finding any hardened positions? Like, how hard is it going to be to get that fifth signature?
It's been an interesting conversation when we talked about it with other folks. I mean, folks have been kind of saying, well, I don't know how exactly work. I'm not too sure. I want to hear a bit more from VIA. And I think that's the goal of the CCR, though. The goal of the CCR, again, is to have the conversation, right? We're not saying tomorrow, no more fares, everyone get on. We don't have the power to do that. But also, it's really to look at a 10-year plan so we can work with VIA on this and see what kind of costs do we need to address here? What kind of funding mechanisms are needed for this? And we listed out there too, right? It's one of the sources could be the new funding they're going to get, which, yes, they do have prescriptions for already.
Yeah, so this is the sales tax revenue that currently this year, through this year, has been going to Ready to Work. Going forward, it's going to go to VIA.
Right.
And I think it could generate, $200+ million. I think for Ready to Work, it's from 2021 to 2025, it's going to generate $235 million. So that's a substantial amount of money.
Right.
Good use of that? I don't know. Maybe
that's not for you to say.
Maybe VIA will do a better job with it. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, your memo did point out that pot of money, that tax revenue,
and other sources,
and other sources. To be totally fair, VIA had I would consider it a pretty bad reaction to that, saying that money is programmed. And if we don't want this to slow down development of our two bus rapid transit lines that are in the works, the green and silver lines, and the money is spoken for. To which you say what?
I absolutely don't want to put Via in a bad financial situation. I was a Via bus rider up until last year. I got my license last year. Like I got around to school.
Did you get your license? Terry Castillo, I did not know this. She didn't. She took buses everywhere until she first ran in District 5.
Yeah.
And then she said, oh my God, if I'm going to be a district, if I'm going to represent District 5, I need to be able to get around.
Sure.
Like in,
Sometimes
not waiting on buses, right? Yeah. I mean, buses, getting around by bus is great if you have more time, but if you're on a tight schedule, it's not great.
Antonio.
Yeah, it's not great because the frequency is sometimes not good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she learned to drive. Was that your case? Like you were running for office and it's like, my God, District 6 is kind of big, and it's like I'm gonna be busy. So
it was actually always that same question my entire life when I was walking around saying, well, this place is kind of big. I really can't get around as much as I like to. And so that's been a big focus for me, right? And I'm very proud to have had support in my life to help me get my car, to get my license, to practice driving in a CVS parking lot or former CVS parking lot, to practice my turning.
Yes.
Can always get better. But anywho, so I mean, this comes from a place of access and of my own personal experience. Getting on the 610 to get to the Ingram Transit Center and taking multiple transfers to get to the Collins Garden Field office at Councilman Ric Castillo's office was difficult every morning. I would get to City Hall at 7 a.m. when I started working there because I just said, well, it's faster than me trying to go at 8 a.m. Because it's going to take too long with traffic. And so understanding the cost prohibitive sometimes it can be to get on the bus. Well, not for me, right? For seniors, for folks with disabilities, for children. I mean, I would ride the bus with kids who were trying to take the bus to school and had to watch them get out the cash. And every single time I would just, here's $1 I have. I don't know. I can't watch you do this because you're 8 and you're paying to get on the bus.
Yeah.
You're 17. You're paying to get on the bus. Like, it doesn't seem to be correct. You don't have your ID and you're paying to get on the bus, but you're trying to get on this Vista. Come on. So I think some of that's just going to be a little bit more of the conversation there. And I, again, don't want to feel like I'm putting VIA in a bad spot because I really believe VIA should be fully funded, meaning the full sales tax they can get, right? Will that be difficult for us to figure out how to make sure that we're paying for some of the programs we're looking at? Absolutely. We can never get there if we don't have the conversation.
But as you pointed out in the memo, not a lot of revenue coming in to VIA is from the fare box.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what was the percentage?
5.
It was like under 5%. I think it was like 4.6 technically. So round up. But
so the idea is,
but it's important, right, for an agency that doesn't have a lot of money.
Yeah. So I mean, the idea is if you make ridership free, you're not actually losing that much.
Not really.
I mean, that's easy for me to say because I'm not running the bus system.
Yeah.
If I were, I'd probably say 5% is a big deal.
Sure.
And how do you make that up?
Right. And that's the thing. How do you make it up? Is it through this new revenue that you're going to get soon that, of course, has already some programming with it, a lot of programming with it? Maybe some leftover could go to it if possible. Or if not, do we have to find different funding revenue? And if so, I believe that this council, would be interested in finding that out.
Mm-hmm. Now, you said at the beginning of this, this section, that you want free ridership for everyone. In the memo, you kind of talk about different iterations of this, how it could play out. Bus routes through certain, distressed neighborhoods. Those lines could be free.
Sure.
Do you think that's more likely to be the end result if you succeed at all? More likely to be that than ridership for everyone for free, or no?
It's not my end.
Which I mean is
yeah.
I mean, I guess what I mean is like a smaller version of what you're after.
I'm always welcome to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm welcome to see how it works out. I try to aim towards the moon and try to see where I end up from there. Whether that's any policy goal, right? See what we're trying to get to here. And I think through the conversation, we can see even through a pilot program, if it's just the Silver Line, I think we'll see more ridership anyway because the Silver Line will have faster routes. It'll be more seamless to move through that. But I also think, could we see some increase in ridership on other lines that are going maybe a bit longer, but are going through major routes through Zarzamora, through John McMullen, through Culebra. There's a lot of places in our city, and I'm looking west, 'cause that's where I've done a lot of that, right? And where I live, that I think have a lot of ridership, and even if they have a little bit less than other key parts, and even some of the major investment ones, why not increase the ridership everywhere we can, or at least make it as easy as possible for people to get on the bus without any kind of interruptions?
Yeah. Now, I think a lot of people would look at what you're trying to do and say, that's what a democratic socialist would and not really know what they were talking about, right? So
Yeah, a public service being free.
Well, I mean, no, I mean, but tell me how something like that, an initiative like free bus ridership, how is that reflective of democratic socialism?
That's a great question. I think one of the key points of it would be, I mean, what I just mentioned, any public service that we are investing our tax dollars into should be, ideally, right? If we're all investing in it, it should be the most efficient. It should be the most widely available, and likely should be free. When we talk about park programming, we don't ask for a lot of fees. We have some fees on some of the sports leagues and things like that. We don't ask you to pay an entry fee to go into any of our public parks. We don't ask you to pay an entry fee to use a sidewalk. We don't ask you to do any of these things for a lot of public services that we all invest in. Why? Because we all invested in them already. So why would we not do the same thing for VIA? Why would we not do the same thing for buses? Why would we not do the same thing for these things that we already are investing our money into? Is it for every single thing? No, each program is a little different. Each entity is a little bit different that we're investing in here. But I mean, for this one in particular, it has such a low fare already as it is. It's not getting a lot of the cost for VIA to be made up from it. I don't understand why it wouldn't be such a big deal, or why it would be such a big deal to try to get us to there in 10 years. I'm not asking for tomorrow. And so I think in terms of your question about how does it fit in with an ideological framework, I think it just comes down to what are we prioritizing here? Are we prioritizing access to services that support people to move throughout our city, or are we prioritizing something else, or making it harder for them to get to that same service? I think we've seen in our country for a long time a lot of barriers within public services we've tried to provide: housing, healthcare, public transit, utilities, and it took some ambitious efforts to get us to a place where it's more affordable. There's a reason why San Antonio's energy rates and water rates are lower than anybody else's. We own the company. Right. So I don't know why it's such a big concern of why would this bus service that we also own, well, it's a different entity technically, but it's also public services, not be a bit more easy to jump onto.
Last question. I swear to God, because often I say last question, it's not the last question. But this is because we're going a little bit long because we've had a lot to talk about, including the fact that you've seen a lot of success among office seekers who identify as a democratic socialist. You've got mayors in Seattle, New York. You got a chunk of our own city council. They are either like you, they are either democratic socialists or they're supported by democratic socialists. And I'm talking about Terry Castillo and Jalen McKee Rodriguez. What do you think is driving kind of this electoral success they've seen over the last 4 or 5 years?
That's a great question. I mean, I think overall, when we look at any kind of political leanings, whether it's towards the left or towards the right, we're seeing a big push for folks who are fighters, right? I don't know if you look at me, maybe think of a fighter, maybe a happy warrior, but pushing for things that are going to be materially beneficial to the community, right? Whether it is transit that's a bit more affordable, whether it is housing that's a bit more affordable, whether it is utility rates are coming down, all these things have been a really big focus by both left wing kind of populists as well as right wing populists about how do we address the material needs. Well, there's differing views on that from the right and the left. It's a big focus here. I think people are kind of, at least from my community, and I can only speak for that one because it's the one that I ran in, right, and done the most community outreach into. I heard a lot about was I want to just really focus in on how do we make our city a bit more affordable, a bit more quality for our community, and a bit safer, right? How do we get there? Let's talk about it. We know some solutions that do work and don't work, right? We know that doing the same thing we've been doing for a long time has not got us to the best place possible. It's gotten us to a good spot, I think. I think our city is more affordable than most cities in Texas. I think we are a safer city overall, but there's still key concerns in multiple places, right? Especially in certain neighborhoods. And so what have we been doing that's been missing the mark there? And I think that's where people are gravitated towards people who are speaking a bit more openly about that. Versus saying the status quo is fine.
Do you think part of it too is that maybe folks in San Antonio with previous maybe elected officials thought, I don't really see myself in this person? I mean, do you think that you're able to connect with residents in a way where maybe they see yourself in you of, they're not driving, they can't afford a car, or, they don't have their license or they're a renter or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was born and raised in District 6, right? So when I talk to folks across the district, there were some folks who are big supporters, say, I don't know if you're going to make it there, but I'm with you all the way. But I'm worried that you're not going to be able to connect the same way that maybe you think you can. I said, okay, challenge accepted. I will work on that. I never found that to be true. I went to schools in Northside ISD in some of the like main schools in the district, right? And so a lot of folks said, "Oh, then you're just from around the corner." Talking about school businesses closing down that we used to all love going to, even when I was little. I talked about the cows still being on 410 when I was there. I get it. I'm 25. That's how fast this district's grown. And so some of that lived experience has been key to me. And I think also, right, it's about timing, right? We're in this moment right now where we're seeing at the national level, the state level, and sometimes locally, although I don't think here, but within our local politics across our state, a lot of folks holding on to power for a long time. And a lot of folks, when they talk to me, said, "You're running on the right things. You seem to mean business, and you're young. I hope that you have the energy that you brought here to the door today, and you continue it on the next 4 years, and sometimes 8, depending on how much people like me or not." Yeah. And so I think that's what really inspired a lot of people to vote for me. I just told them who I was.
Now, we're living in a really high cost age right now, and affordability looks like, it looks like it's going to be a pretty powerful issue going into 2026. If the economy were better, and costs, prices at the grocery were lower,
Sure.
Would that hurt candidates who identify as democratic socialists?
Potentially. I mean, I think it's always about what's important for people's material needs there. I mean, I think it's given an opportunity in terms of people who are more middle class, who have been seeing the kind of struggle there a bit more than folks who are traditionally already in this kind of struggle. But I think people, no matter what the political leaning is, enjoy or appreciate people who are running for office or are elected, who are honest to them about what's going on in their lives, right? If we're seeing crime continue to take place in your specific neighborhood, while crime overall seems to be going down, something's missing here. And me telling you, it's fine. Everything's going down, I'm not going to worry about it, is incorrect to do. It's incorrect for any, I think, not only elected, but even just government official to do, right? Yeah. To ignore that need that's there. Whether it's crime, whether it's healthy living, or whether it's housing affordability, or whether, those are just things that even for people who are seniors who have lived in their homes for a long time and say, I'm good. I feel okay in the Great Northwest. But my son is having a hard time. My grandson, who looks just like you, cannot afford to live in District 6 where he grew up.
Yeah.
How are we going to make that better, right? And so maybe it doesn't affect all the folks that we think it would, but there's still people that care about other folks in their lives. And I think in San Antonio, it's specifically unique of that kind of strong culture of family ties, right? Where we're seeing your kids maybe a bit less because they live in Alamo Ranch or further out now, but still trying to commute in to downtown or somewhere to work. Yeah. And so all those elements I think are still there. Maybe the economy's a bit better, maybe it makes things better for everybody. And so there's less need to do a lot of intervention because maybe we're in a better spot in terms of our actual policymaking too, to make it all work. Who's to say?
All right. That sounds like a great place to end this thing. Councilman Ric Galvan, thank you very much for joining us. Molly, thanks for being on.
Of course.
Thank you for watching. And it's going to be weird again for the 10,000th time to ask you, if you haven't signed up for the ENside Politics newsletter, do it. Please just drop down to show notes, click on the thing, fill out the thing, and just get your really good newsletter. Thanks a lot. And we will see you not next week, but in the new year. Thanks a lot. See you later.